This is my family's home in Hai Phong, Vietnam. I designed it when I was 22, just after graduating with a degree in civil engineering. It was the very first house I ever designed. But it didn't always look like this. 5 years ago, my family was still living in an old house that had been built back in 1987. It was the home where I grew up, filled with decades of family memories. As the years passed, the house slowly fell into poor condition. Eventually, we knew it was time to build a new one. Everything began with a simple drawing on my computer. Today, this is where my family lives. And it's also where my YouTube journey begins. Hi, I'm Sang. I'm 27 years old, and I live here in Hai Phong, Vietnam. A few months ago, I left my office job, used half of my savings for a hair transplant to become more confident, and decided to start over by chasing my dream of becoming a YouTube creator. But before all of that, there was another dream that became reality. When I was 22, just after graduating with a degree in civil engineering, I designed this house for my family. In today's video, I'd like to show you what it was really like to build a typical Vietnamese tube house, from the very first day of construction to the day we finally had a place to call home. The entire process took about 6 months, and along the way, I'll also share a little about how ordinary families in Vietnam build their homes. The man standing in the middle, wearing a watch and green gloves, is my dad. He's 64 years old and has worked as a residential construction worker for many years. When he's not working on construction sites, he often goes out on a small boat with local fishermen to catch fish and kai, a small type of brackish water crab that's common in northern Vietnam. In this part of the video, the workers are building wooden formwork around the steel reinforcement for the house foundation. This creates the mold that will hold the concrete in place when the foundation is poured, one of the most important steps in building a house. The next day, a ready-mix concrete truck and a concrete pump arrive to pour the foundation. These days in Hai Phong, and in many parts of Vietnam, this is the most common way to build foundations and concrete roofs. It's much faster than mixing concrete by hand, which used to be the traditional method. The woman on the left, wearing the traditional Vietnamese conical hat and the blue floral shirt, is my mom. A few days later, once the concrete had hardened, the workers removed the wooden formwork and built the foundation walls, about 1 meter high. Today, my dad is down there working with the rest of the crew, helping build the foundation of our new home. Here, an excavator is spreading and leveling the sand to prepare the floor base. After that, the water supply and drainage pipes were installed beneath the floor before the concrete floor slab was poured. A few days later, it was time to pour the floor. The concrete was delivered by truck, and the workers moved it with wheelbarrows before carefully spreading and leveling it by hand. Construction started in late October. In northern Vietnam, the weather is much cooler and more comfortable at that time of year, so it's easier for the workers than during the hot summer months. Construction is incredibly hard work, and I have a lot of respect for the people who do it every day. Once the floor slab had hardened, the workers began assembling the steel reinforcement for the first floor columns. From this point on, the house slowly started to rise above the ground. Next came the steel column forms and the concrete pour for the first floor columns. After a few days, once the concrete had cured, the forms were removed and the brickwork could begin. Today, the walls of the first floor are finally going up. In my area, many homes are built with 20-centimeter thick brick walls to help keep the house cooler in summer, warmer in winter, and better insulated from outside noise. Today, there are 6 bricklayers and 2 helpers mixing and delivering mortar, so the work is moving along quite quickly. The man standing at the front of the scaffolding talking to the crew, is my cousin. He was the contractor for our house and gave me a lot of advice throughout the entire project. At this stage, the first floor walls were already finished. The crew was busy setting up the formwork and reinforcing steel, preparing for one of the biggest milestones, the concrete pour for the first floor slab. The weather was quite cloudy today, with no sunshine or blue skies. It looked like rain might be on the way. You might notice that many of our windows, along with the side entrance, face the sunset. I designed it that way because the other side could eventually be built up by our neighbors. This side overlooks an open space, so it lets in much more natural light and fresh air. Today, a ready-mix concrete truck and a concrete pump arrived to pour the first floor slab. Thanks to the pump's long boom, even houses tucked away in narrow alleys like ours can now be poured with ease. Years ago, concrete had to be mixed and carried by hand, which was much slower and far more physically demanding. This was the view from the first floor while our house was still under construction. From up here, you could see the trees and the traditional homes around our neighborhood. About a month after the concrete slab was poured, I climbed up onto the roof to check that everything looked good before the next stage of construction began. Today, the workers are pouring the concrete for the second floor columns now that the first floor slab has fully hardened. You might notice this simple lifting hoist. It's powered by an electric winch with a wooden frame and a steel cable, and it's used to lift building materials from one floor to the next. It's a very common setup on residential construction sites in Vietnam. I'm curious, do builders use something like this in your country too? This is the stage where the second floor walls are being built. The solid fired clay bricks, which are commonly used in Vietnamese homes, are lifted upstairs and stacked close to the work area so the bricklayers can work more efficiently. Just like the first floor, the second floor is built with 20-centimeter thick walls. They help keep the house cooler in summer, warmer in winter, and better insulated from outside noise. This is a common building method in northern Vietnam. It was a beautiful winter day, with blue skies and cool, comfortable weather. I stepped back to capture the whole house as it was slowly coming together. As you can see, the wall on the left side had already been completed. The following day, the crew would finish building the wall on the right. We had a fairly large construction crew, usually around 6 workers, and sometimes as many as 9, including the helpers. With so many people working together, the construction moved along at a really good pace. Meanwhile, my dad was up on the second floor, removing the buckets that had been used to carry building materials during construction. After some time, the temporary formwork and support props inside the first floor were gradually removed as the concrete had fully cured. After the formwork was installed and the steel reinforcement for the second floor slab was completed, 2 ready-mix concrete trucks and a concrete pump arrived to pour the slab. Before the concrete was pumped, the quality control technician took a small sample and poured it into a test mold. The sample was then handed over to my family and allowed to cure under the same conditions as the slab. Later, it would be tested and compared with the actual concrete to make sure everything met the required standards. In Vietnam, large concrete trucks like these are usually restricted from driving through city streets during peak traffic hours. That's why they're often scheduled around noon, when many people are taking a lunch break and the roads are quieter, or after about 9 p.m. when traffic has eased. It makes both transportation and construction much more efficient. After the second floor slab was poured, we waited about 28 days for the concrete to reach its full design strength. Today, the workers removed the formwork and began assembling the columns for the third floor. This would be the final floor of our house. The weather couldn't have been better. Clear blue skies and cool, comfortable conditions made it a perfect day for construction. After months of construction and waiting, the house was finally starting to look just like the drawings I had created on my computer. It was the result of countless hours of hard work by the construction crew and my family. It was also the very first house I had ever designed after graduating from university. Even now, every time I look at it, it still feels special knowing that a simple drawing became the place my family now calls home. Today, the wall on the right side of the third floor was finally completed. Throughout the construction, I also helped the crew by carrying bricks, sand, cement, and mortar. It wasn't just to lend a hand. It also gave me a chance to stay involved and keep a close eye on every stage of building our home. From the third floor, I could look out over the entire neighborhood. Everything felt so peaceful, just an ordinary corner of Hai Phong, Vietnam. These clips were filmed back in 2021, so the video quality isn't as good as what I can record today. Thanks for understanding. For the third floor, I chose 10-centimeter thick walls instead of 20-centimeter ones. They reduce the load on the foundation while also helping keep the construction costs down. I've always been afraid of heights, but building this house slowly changed that. I spent so much time climbing up to check every stage of the construction that, little by little, the fear started to fade. Now, being up here feels much more natural. Today, we finally reached the stage of installing the formwork for the third floor slab, the final floor of our house. Everything was going smoothly and staying right on schedule, just as I had planned from the beginning. By this point, the first floor had already been plastered and was starting to look much more finished. Meanwhile, the workers were still installing the formwork on the third floor, getting everything ready for the next stage of construction. My dad was also working alongside the crew, using a hammer to secure and reinforce the formwork supporting the third floor slab before the concrete pour. This is the steel reinforcement for the third floor roof slab. The day before the concrete pour, I climbed up to give everything one final inspection. Meanwhile, my cousin was still reinforcing the last few sections before everything was ready. In Vietnam, many families place great importance on choosing an auspicious day for milestones like breaking ground, pouring the roof slab, or moving into a new home. They often consult the lunar calendar and choose a date that's believed to be lucky and compatible with the homeowner's birth year, hoping it will bring a smooth construction process, good fortune, and peace to the family. A little later, the crew finished setting up the scaffolding along the right side of the house so they could begin plastering the exterior walls. On residential construction sites in Vietnam, you'll often see different types of scaffolding. Some are made from large bamboo poles, some are built from timber used for formwork, and others use prefabricated steel frame scaffolding like the one you see here. It usually depends on the size of the project and the builder's preference. I have so much respect for construction workers. They work high above the ground every day, yet they stay incredibly focused and careful. Once all the sidewalls had been plastered, the crew moved back to the front of the house to finish the final exterior details. After months of construction and waiting, our house was finally starting to look just like the drawings I had created. Seeing something that once existed only on my computer slowly become a real home is a feeling that's hard to put into words. It made me feel proud, grateful, and incredibly happy. This was the very first house I had ever designed, and watching it come to life was something I'll never forget. A typical workday here starts at 7:30 a.m. and ends at 11:30 a.m., followed by a lunch break. Work then resumes from 1:30 p.m. to 5:30 p.m. The crew usually works 7 days a week, and if someone needs a day off, they simply let the homeowner or site manager know in advance. During their breaks, my family usually brings out snacks and cold drinks for everyone. Every month or two, we also treat the crew to a small meal together or give them a cash bonus to thank them for all their hard work. By this point, the decorative breeze blocks on the front of the house had finally been completed. They're one of my favorite design features in the entire house. In Vietnam, breeze blocks were once a common feature in homes built decades ago. They let in natural light and fresh air while adding a unique look to the facade. Although they became less popular for many years, they've made a strong comeback recently and are now a popular design element in modern townhouses, cafes, and restaurants across Vietnam. After the floor tiles were finished inside the house, it was finally time to dig the foundation for the front gate. My cousin, who was also the contractor, recommended building a proper foundation for the gate. That way, if the neighboring houses are built in the future and their foundations are excavated, our gate and boundary wall will be much less likely to shift or crack. The front gate is one of my favorite parts of the entire design. I wanted it to be more than just an entrance. I wanted it to become the first impression of our home. By this point, the house had finally started to look exactly the way I had imagined. I was incredibly happy, and so was my whole family. From the very beginning of the construction, many of our neighbors would stop and look because the design was quite different from the other houses around it. At first, most people couldn't really picture what it would look like, but as the structure neared completion, people began saying how unique and modern it looked. Hearing those comments made all the time and effort feel completely worthwhile. Inside the house, the electrical wiring and the wall finishing work were moving ahead quickly as the project entered its final stages. I also designed a skylight above the staircase in the center of the house. It brings natural light and fresh air deep into the interior, making the space feel brighter, more open, and reducing the need for artificial lighting during the day. Today, the painting crew arrived to give the house its new coat of paint. After months of looking like nothing but brick, concrete, and cement, it was finally starting to look like a real home. It was almost ready for the final touches before my family could move in. This was the stage when the Jingfa aluminum windows and doors, along with the steel staircase and its wooden handrail, were installed. The total construction cost was about 1.5 billion Vietnamese dong in 2021, which was roughly 65,000 US dollars at the exchange rate at the time. And once everything was finished, this was the final result. This wasn't just the first house I had ever designed. It was the result of months of hard work by my family, the construction crew, and everyone who helped bring it to life. What do you think of the house? I'd love to hear your thoughts. And how are houses usually built in your country? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe to support my journey as a content creator. And don't forget to tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know which part of the world you're in. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.